Let me just say a few things. I want to start off by quoting Lalo Delgado, Chicano poet, who once said that being a Chicano poet was like being in a constant state of pregnancy. And I always found that to be so powerful because it really feels the way I grew up, full of art, full of wanting to express and not having a place, avenues, options where that could happen. And I think that I have to mention that the Chicano movement was, for me, my release. The movimiento that was consciente, that had art at the heart of it, that was constantly expressing itself. And for those who were going through that time, you know how liberating it was to be in a culture that was okay, not just to be Mexicano, but to be Chicano. You know what I'm saying? And that your art could be expressed on the walls. As you know, East LA, which is a ghetto barrio as any you're going to find, with 6 housing projects, exploded with art on walls everywhere, on the housing projects everywhere. Poetry was big. All the bands that came out of the 60s and 70s. Music, from the lowrider culture all the way to what was going on in the colegios, in the colleges, and the universities. In other words, there was a movement that really exploded, and exploded inside me. I was a heroin addict, I was a gang member, and somehow I found my equilibrium, my traction, my balance through the movimiento. So to me, this is why Lalo Delgado's statement means so much to me, that you're in a constant state of pregnancy because you're not always able to have a baby. You're not always able to put forward what you have. And even when you do, you still get full again. You can't ever stop that creative reservoir which exists in every human being to be imaginative, to be artistic, to be creative. And to me, this is something that saved my life, to know that it exists. Because the limiting aspects of society, of discrimination, of ghettoization, of all these things, is to destroy your imagination. You understand what I'm getting at? The worst part of poverty is not even the material part that's not there. That's bad. It's the poverty of spirit that goes along with it, where you're crushed inside. And I saw my dad get crushed. I saw him completely get destroyed as a human being. And I saw my mother get crushed. And I saw this crushing going on. And again, the only thing that helped me was the idea of imagination. In imagen, como dice Francisco, of, you know what, we are human beings, and no matter how bad things are, no matter how limiting things are, no matter what things they put in front of us, we can always be creative. You know? We can always be imaginative. We can always find a way through. That's a very powerful thing. And to me, the Chicano movement that's what it brought me. And of course, now we don't just have Chicanos in here no more, which is, it's good. You have so many Latinos from all over, Salvadoreños, we got Guatemaltecos, we got Hondureños, we got people from all over South America. It's really enriched, I feel enriched the culture, because it used to be that we were just Chicanos, remember? You know. But now we got so many people, and it's important because we have to learn to respect each other, to know that we are in fact hermanos y hermanas, and that we actually have a borderless imagination. Because the one thing about Chicanos that I got from being Chicano is that pretty soon you don't even let the borders limit you. You come in with the idea that the borders are totally made up and we can go crossing them. Yeah, I would go to Mexico thinking there was no borders, and of course Mexicanos would say, you're Chicano, you're Pocho, get out of here. Didn't matter though. I really had this idea, it doesn't matter, that border was made up, I'm just like you. And it helped, you know, because a lot of Chicanos would recoil, okay, I'm not going back to Mexico, they don't treat me nice. I didn't, I kept going back to Mexico. I went to El Salvador, I've been to Guatemala, I've been to Peru, San Francisco. In other words, I began to realize, damn these borders, damn them. We are gente of so much legacy, so much heritage, so much capacity, you know. That's what you learn about being Chicano, is that in fact we are all connected. And that's one of the reasons why I'd like to speak on this, because I think I want to put Chicano in a perspective here among all these Latinos that are coming in. There's that one of the things that we had in the movimiento is reaching out, to bridge, to not just be confined. People think that it was just a narrowing, but it wasn't. It was an opening. The narrowing to me was being stuck on drugs in the barrio, and all my other hermanos in another barrio were my enemies. That's narrow. You know what I mean? They were killing their own gente. That was narrowing. You know, I remember going to parties and there would be other people, blacks, whites, Asians, but I would find the next cholo, the next Mexicano, the guy just looked just like me, and I would go after this guy. That's how much hatred we had to ourselves, that we would hate the guy that looked just like us. And that's what the real narrowing The Chicano movement, to me, gave me the sense that we all belong here, that we all are here for a reason. And, you know, it liberated my whole consciousness. I don't know if you're aware, but in the 80s, for example, I was in Chicano movement in the 60s and the 70s, and supposedly things went down. But then I went to Mexico in the 80s. There was uprisings in Mexico. Every month there was an uprising. Indigenous uprisings. I went to Oaxaca. I was in Uchitan when the COSE was organizing. I was with the Mixtecos in San Quintin in Baja California. 80,000 that were enslaved from Oaxaca, brought into a slave to work in tomato fields. I was there involved with their uprising. I was involved in uprisings of farmers and campesinos who took over lands. In the 80s, Mexico was exploding. It never got into the news. And here was a Chicano coming in there to be part of all that because I wanted to connect. Things weren't happening in the United States. They were low key. You know, you had the Nixon period, then you had the Reagan period, and everything was getting crushed. And I ended up in Mexico and things seemed alive. But one of the things that one of the revolutionarios told me, you got to go back to LA. You got to go back to the U.S. because you know what? Whatever we're doing here, as long as the U.S. is blocked, confused, and completely unable to understand the connections they have with the rest of us, we're all screwed. And I went back, not to forget my revolutionary commitments, but to bring them back to the United States. I was with the Sandinistas. In the early 80s, I got bombed with the Contras, bombed twice in southern Honduras, and then and then it was an issue of coming back. And that's what I've done. To me, coming back was not to neglect all these struggles, but to come back and fight the struggle that we needed to fight here. This is why these books happen. This is why I got into writing the kind of books that I wrote. I started my first book in '89, 20 years ago exactly, by myself, because nobody was going to give me the option. There was the publishing. Kirk, you know, publishing wasn't happening in those days for Chicanos, Mexicanos, Latinos. They weren't happening. They weren't doing books. We had to forge our way. We had to create our own. I created Tia Chucha Press before I got published by anybody. I created my own press, named it for my crazy tia, you know, because I had to name it for somebody, and she was the most biggest influence in my life, and she had died, and I wanted to honor her. Tia Chucha Press, named for my tia. And I started my first book. Now with Tia Chucha Press, in 20 years we published 50 books. I don't publish myself anymore, just my first book. Now we publish all kinds of people. And by the way, I don't just limit it to Chicano. We publish anybody. I'm open to anybody. I'm better than most publishers who don't do that. I publish Irish, I publish Japanese, I publish Jamaicans, I publish Puerto Ricans, all kinds of people. And then also to forge our way into the publishing world, such as, you know, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, who never used to publish us. Rio was started because of the struggle that we had to put ourselves out there. It wasn't nobody giving you anything. Nobody gave us nothing, by the way. We had to forge and fight and struggle. And I've been to panels, and I've actually got up and spoke in middle audiences to publishing groups. I used to go to all book expos just to crash it, you know, and just to jump on people. And we opened up all these doors, and people need to know that place that Chicanos had in opening it up. And again, not against anybody else, but so that anybody else can get in and get published. I have a hard time with ¿cómo se llama? Valdez Rodriguez, that author of, she did these kind of Latino chick lit books.
Cubana?
Yeah, she's actually Cubana and Irish. All power to her, I got no problem with that. But she got up one day at one big meeting, and she's gotten the biggest advance of any Latino in history of publishing. I don't know how much it was, somebody said it was $1 million, I don't know. But it was more than anybody. She would never have got that if it wasn't for what Chicanos had done previous to that. But it doesn't matter. That's fine. I got no issue with that. The issue that I have with her is that somebody asked her in a big giant book expo, all these publishers were there. She's like the biggest known. She's Latina. She's not even all the way Latina. But anyway, okay, she's half Cuban, half Irish. She's fine. But lo que pasó is they went and hit her up. Should we have Chicano or Latino sections of bookstores separated from everybody else? He says, no, you shouldn't do that. Just off the bat. She was trying to represent the Chicanos, and that's where she made a mistake. We forged a way for her to get up there and to get that kind of thing, but she should never represent what we built. Because I had to get up from the audience and say, no. You know why we fought for those damn things? Because you'll never find us anywhere if somebody didn't say there's a place for Chicanos and other Latinos to be in there. We fought for them so people can find them, can go in the bookstore and see a section. You hear what I'm saying? Because not only that, if we didn't fight for them, they wouldn't even put them in the other sections. Forget that.